a sunny afternoon, the bustling streets of the city were alive with the constant murmur of conversations and the distant sound of passing cars. Among the crowds, a man walked alone, his tall, imposing figure contrasting with the melancholy that lingered in his eyes. His name was William, a successful businessman, but the life he had built was shrouded in shadows, a mix of loneliness and bitterness that followed him like an unwanted old friend. He continued on his way, lost in thought when something caught his attention. On the edge of the sidewalk, near a flower stand, a young woman stood. There was something about her that made William stop, an inexplicable magnetism that drew him closer. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves and her expression was serene, almost ethereal, as she arranged the flowers into small, colorful bouquets. But it wasn't her beauty that left him motionless. It was the necklace she wore around her neck. William felt the air escape his lungs, his heart beating with a force he hadn't felt in years. The necklace hanging from the young woman's neck was unmistakable, a silver pendant with a delicate turquoise stone in the center. He knew that necklace better than he knew himself. It was the same one he had given to the woman who had once been the love of his life, the woman he had tragically lost 18 years ago. For a moment, everything around William faded away. He was no longer in the noisy streets of the city. He was back in the past, in a time when his life was different, simpler, and filled with hope. He remembered the night he had given that necklace to his beloved Sophie. She had smiled, her eyes sparkling with emotion as she fastened the necklace around her neck. "I will wear it forever," she had said, and at that moment, William had believed they would have all the time in the world together. But life had other plans. Sophie had passed away, taking William's heart with her. Since then, he had become a hardened man, someone who built a successful empire but paid the price with his soul. He had convinced himself that he would never feel that kind of connection again, that love had died along with Sophie. But there, in front of the young flower seller, something inside him began to awaken. William approached slowly, as if any sudden movement could break the spell of that moment. The young woman looked up at him, her innocent and curious eyes meeting his. "Can I help you?" she asked in a soft voice, a tone that, for a moment, made William wonder if he was dreaming. He couldn't take his eyes off the necklace. "Where did you get that?" The question came out harsher than he intended, but the need for answers was overwhelming. The young woman furrowed her brow slightly, surprised by the intensity of his question. "This necklace? It was a gift. It's something special to me." William felt a shiver run down his spine. How was that necklace the symbol of the love he had lost now in the hands of this unknown young woman? Every fiber of his being screamed at him to leave, to escape the ghost that haunted him. But another part, a part he thought was dead, wanted to know more, to uncover the truth no matter how painful it might be. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. This encounter was no coincidence. It was a call, a portal opening to the past, offering him the chance to rediscover something he had lost, something that might give meaning to the emptiness he had carried for so long. And so, without realizing it, William took the first step on a journey that would change his life forever. The days following his encounter with the young flower seller were a whirlwind for William. He couldn't shake the image of the necklace from his mind. That small silver pendant with the turquoise stone that once symbolized all the good in his life. The past, which he had fought so hard to bury, now haunted him, appearing in unexpected forms. And the more he thought about it, the more unrest grew within him. William knew he needed answers. The necklace for the young woman seemed to be just a piece of jewelry, something beautiful she wore with ease. But for him, it was a symbol, a key to a mystery he couldn't ignore. Who was she? How did she get the necklace? And why was this happening now after so many years? Determined to uncover the truth, William began to investigate. He hired a private detective, someone he trusted to dig into the young woman's past. But even before the results arrived, William couldn't sit still. He started visiting the flower market where she worked, observing her from a distance, trying to find clues in her behavior and interactions. Every gesture of hers seemed loaded with meaning, as if each movement could offer a fragment of the puzzle he was piecing together. One day, while pretending to pick out flowers, William approached the young woman and struck up a casual conversation. He wanted to know more about her but needed to be careful. "These flowers are beautiful," he remarked, trying to sound relaxed. "Have you worked here long? Are you enjoying the story so far? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any stories like this one." She smiled, a smile that felt painfully familiar to him, and replied, "No, just a few months. I moved to the city recently. I was looking for something peaceful, something that would give me time to think." William felt his heart race. "Think about what?" he asked, trying to disguise the urgency in his voice. She shrugged, still smiling. "About life, about where I came from and where I'm going. We all have something that makes us stop and think, right?" He nodded, but his mind was racing. There was something in the way she spoke, an underlying melancholy, that made him believe she was also searching for something, or perhaps someone. The connection between them, however vague, was starting to deepen, like roots intertwining in the soil, invisible yet powerful. Meanwhile, the private detective returned with new information. The young woman, whose name was Lily, had a life story that felt like an incomplete puzzle. She had been raised by adoptive parents in a small town and, according to the detective, had never known her biological parents. The necklace, it seemed, was the only belonging she had from her biological family, a gift given to her just before her mother passed away. When William heard this, it felt like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. Could Lily be Sophie's daughter? The idea was unbearable, yet undeniably plausible. Everything began to make sense in a way he wasn't prepared to accept. If Lily was truly Sophie's daughter, it meant the woman he had loved had lived a secret life, a life without him, and that Lily, unknowingly, carried the traces of that hidden past. William's obsession grew. He needed to know more. He needed to confirm what his instincts were already telling him. With each discovery, his mind returned to the necklace. That simple pendant that suddenly contained the entire complexity of a past he had never known existed. It was as if the necklace was whispering ancient secrets, secrets that, once revealed, would change everything. William began to lose sleep, haunted by the what-ifs. What if he had searched for Sophie? What if he had known about Lily? What could life have been if he hadn't isolated himself in his own pain? But now, there was no turning back. He was determined to follow this path to the end, no matter what he might find. And as the pieces of the puzzle came together, he realized he was on a journey much deeper and more dangerous than he had imagined. A journey to uncover secrets that had been buried for decades. Secrets that could redefine who he was and what it meant to live with the truth. William's sleepless nights were now dominated by a single question. How did that necklace, which had been the symbol of his lost love, end up in Lily's hands? The answer seemed to always be just out of reach, like a shadow he couldn't grasp. But William was determined to find the truth no matter the cost. He began to follow the few leads he had, diving headfirst into an investigation that took him back to places and people he had long left behind. It was as if the necklace was pulling him back into a past he had tried to bury, forcing him to confront memories that hurt more than any physical wound. During his search, William remembered a figure who might have answers, someone who knew both Sophie and him. An old friend, Thomas, who had been close to them during the golden days of their youth, but with whom William had lost contact after Sophie's death. Thomas was the kind of person who always stayed on the sidelines, observing more than participating. But now, William suspected he knew more than he had let on. Driven by this new urgency, William decided to visit Thomas, who now lived a quiet life in a distant town. The journey there was a test of patience. Each kilometer traveled fueled the anxiety gnawing at his soul. When he finally arrived at Thomas's home, a modest cottage surrounded by ancient trees, William hesitated before knocking on the door. Part of him feared what he was about to discover. Thomas opened the door with a look of surprise, his eyes scanning William for a moment before breaking into a warm smile. "William, it's been a long time," he exclaimed. But there was something forced in his voice, something that William did not overlook. They sat in the living room exchanging pleasantries while a tense atmosphere hung in the air. But William wasn't there to reminisce about the past. He came for answers. After a few minutes, William got straight to the point. "Thomas, I need to know about Sophie's necklace. The one with the turquoise stone. You remember it, don't you?" Thomas shifted uncomfortably in his chair, as if time was about to reveal a secret he preferred to keep hidden. "Of course I remember," he replied, avoiding William's gaze. "She never took it off." William leaned forward, the intensity in his voice rising. "I saw a young woman wearing that necklace." "How did she get it, Thomas? I need to know." The silence that followed was almost palpable. Thomas looked down at his hands, fingers intertwined as if holding an invisible burden. "William, there are things I never told you. Things that happened after Sophie left." William felt a wave of anger and betrayal rising within him. "Why? What have you been hiding from me, Thomas?" Thomas lifted his gaze, finally meeting William's eyes. "I didn't know how to tell you. After Sophie died, her family reached out to me. There were secrets, William. Things about Sophie that no one knew. She had a daughter, William. A daughter no one knew about. Her family decided to keep her away from everything to protect her. And the necklace, they gave it to the daughter when she was born." William felt the world around him crumble. Thomas's words were like knives, each one cutting deeper than the last. "Sophie had a daughter? My daughter?" The idea was incomprehensible, impossible to accept. But at the same time, something inside him knew it was true. Thomas nodded slowly. "Yes, William. And that young woman you met, she is Sophie's daughter. I don't know why her family kept this from you, but now you know." The impact of the revelation hit William like a freight train. His world, already in ruins, felt like it was disintegrating further. The necklace, which he had always associated with Sophie and the love he lost, was now linked to a daughter he never knew existed. A daughter who had grown up without him, without a father's love, and who was now unknowingly closer to him than he could have ever imagined. With a heavy heart and a mind in turmoil, William stood up. "I need to go. Thank you, Thomas." William's voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of decades of pain and regret. As he left Thomas's house, William knew his life would never be the same. He had answers, but with them came new questions, new dilemmas. He needed to find Lily again. He needed to tell her the truth, and perhaps find a way to make amends for the past. But one thing was certain. The secret of the necklace was just the beginning of a journey that was far from over. William was stunned, each thought a storm in his mind. Thomas's words echoed in his head like a distant but relentless bell. She had a daughter. Your daughter. It felt as if the ground had opened beneath him, and he was falling, hopelessly searching for something to hold on to. When he finally found the courage to seek out Lily again, he felt like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. Everything he believed about his past was unraveling, thread by thread, and the truth he was about to reveal would change his life in ways he could not yet fully comprehend. Lily was at the flower market as usual, arranging bouquets with a serene smile. To her it was just another normal day, but for William, it was the day that would define his entire existence. He approached her, but this time his heart was heavy and his mind was restless. Lily looked up and noticed the troubled expression on his face. "Mr. William, is everything okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. William felt a lump form in his throat. How could he tell her? How could he shatter the normalcy of her life with such a devastating revelation? But he knew he had to do it, no matter how much it hurt. "Lily," he began, his voice trembling. "There's something you need to know, something about me and about you." She frowned, confused but attentive, realizing that what he was about to say was serious. "What is it?" she asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. William took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "I knew your mother, Sophie. She was the great love of my life, but we separated and she had you." Lily's expression shifted from confusion to shock. She took a step back as if needing space to process what she had just heard. You knew my mother? How is that possible? William felt tears welling up in his eyes, but he held them back. Yes, I knew her, I loved her, and now I know that you are our daughter, Lily. You are my daughter. Lily shook her head as if trying to deny what she was hearing. This doesn't make sense. My mother never talked about you. I grew up not knowing who my father was. How can this be true? William stepped forward, pain and regret evident in every word. She must have had her reasons for hiding this, but I'm here now. And I need you to know that I'm here for you. Everything that happened, everything we didn't know, it doesn't change who you are. You are my daughter, Lily. And I just want to make things right. Lily fell silent, her eyes filling with tears that she desperately tried to hold back. Her life had just been turned upside down, and the man she only knew as a regular customer was now revealing himself to be the father she had never known. The mix of emotions, shock, pain, anger, and a strange, unexpected sense of relief swirled inside her, creating a storm that she didn't know how to control. I don't know what to say, she finally managed to murmur. This is a lot to process. William nodded, understanding the weight of his revelation. I know it is, Lily, I know, and I don't expect you to accept it right away. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I just want to be part of your life if you'll let me. Lily looked at him, seeing for the first time not the wealthy, distant man she knew, but a vulnerable man, broken by time and the choices of the past. There was something painfully honest in the way he looked at her, a sincerity that made her realize he was just as lost as she was. Finally, she took a deep breath, trying to find some stability amidst the chaos of her emotions. I need time, she said, her voice trembling. I need time to understand this. William nodded again, the pain still present but now mixed with a spark of hope. I will wait as long as it takes, Lily. I just wanted you to know the truth. With that, he stepped back, giving her the space she needed. And as he walked back down the street, he felt as if the weight of the world was on his shoulders. But for the first time in many years, there was also a glimpse of something he thought he had lost forever, a chance for redemption. Lily stood there watching him leave, the necklace she now knew belonged to her mother weighing heavily around her neck in a way she had never felt before. What would she do with this new truth? How could she move forward knowing that her entire life had been built on a secret? The answers wouldn't come easily, but Lily knew that her life, just like William's, had changed forever. The choices they both made from that moment on would shape their futures in ways they could not yet comprehend. The days following the revelation were pure agony for William. He could barely sleep, each waking moment a torment as he tried to process what he had discovered. Lily was his daughter. But the joy he should have felt was mixed with overwhelming pain, a sense of betrayal that consumed him. He needed answers only Lily could provide. Then, on a sunny afternoon, he found her at the same flower market, the place where it all began. But this time, there was no lightness in their casual exchange. They both knew they were about to face truths that could change everything. Lily looked at him as he approached, her expression a mixture of sadness and acceptance. She had spent days thinking, sifting through childhood memories that now held new meaning. When William arrived, she knew she could no longer delay the conversation they both dreaded. We need to talk, she said, her voice low but firm. William nodded, his heart racing in his chest, anticipating the pain he knew was coming. They walked together to a nearby park, where they found a secluded bench away from the hustle and bustle of the streets. They sat down, the silence between them thick with the words that still needed to be said. Lily, William began, his voice filled with emotion. I need to know what your life was like. How were you raised, and why didn't your mother ever tell me about you? Lily took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. My mother, Sophie, she wasn't alone when I was born. I was raised by someone else, by a woman named Grace. She raised me as if I were her own daughter. and I never knew the truth about my biological mother until Grace told me. Just before she died, William felt a tightness in his chest. Grace? Who is Grace, and why did Sophie leave you with her? Lily looked out at the horizon, as if seeking strength from the trees around her. Grace was a close friend of Sophie's. When my mom got pregnant with you, she was scared and lost. She thought she couldn't raise a baby on her own, so it was Grace who took care of me. I grew up believing that Grace was my mother. Sophie. She would visit me sometimes, but she never told me the truth. To me, she was just a friend of Grace. William couldn't believe what he was hearing. Sophie, the woman he had loved so deeply, had lived a secret life, one where he had no place. And the most painful part of it all was that she had been alive for longer than he had thought. So, Sophie was alive? While you were growing up? He asked, his voice trembling with the pain of this revelation. Lily nodded, her eyes filling with tears. Yes, she was. She was sick, but she didn't die right after my birth like I thought. She passed away when I was 10. Until then, I didn't know she was my mother. After she was gone, Grace told me the truth, but it was too late for me to really know her. William felt as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. Sophie had been alive, and he had never known. He had lived all those years believing she had died right after their breakup, but she had built a life he had never known. Did she ever try to find me? Did she ever try to tell me about you? His voice was a mix of pain and anger, the betrayal echoing in each word. Lily looked at him, sadness in her eyes. I don't know, William. Grace told me that Sophie always spoke highly of you, that she loved you, but that she thought you had moved on. She didn't want to disrupt your life. She was convinced it was better this way. William felt a wave of anger, but not directed at Sophie, at himself. How did he not know? How did he not realize there was more, something he should have sought? But the past was out of reach now, and all that remained was to deal with the consequences. I've been deceived, Lily, he said bitterly. Deceived for so many years. I believed Sophie was dead, that our love had died with her. But she was alive, and she had you, and I never knew. Lily placed her hand over his, a simple gesture but filled with compassion. I know this hurts, William. It hurts for me too. But now, all we can do is move forward, try to make the best of what we have. I didn't know my mother the way I wanted to, but now I know you. And maybe we can find a way to heal this pain together. William looked at her, seeing so much of Sophie and the young woman before him, and felt tears finally stream down his face. He had lost so much time, so many opportunities. But now there was a new chance, a chance to be the father he never knew he could be, and perhaps, just perhaps, to find peace with himself and his past. As the sun set on the horizon, William realized that his life was changing, that he was entering a new chapter, one he never expected but was ready to face alongside Lily. William believed he had faced all possible shocks, that his heart had been shattered so many times that nothing could surprise him anymore. But then, amid the pain and discovery of his daughter, came the revelation he never imagined. Sophie was alive. It was information he couldn't process immediately. How could it be true? For all those years he had believed Sophie died shortly after Lily was born. The idea that she was still alive, that she had been alive all these years, felt like a second chance he never thought he would receive, but it also filled him with fear and uncertainty. Determined to find her, William wasted no time. Each passing minute felt like an eternity, and he couldn't bear the thought of Sophie being in any difficult situation without him knowing. He tracked down Sophie's last known address, a small house in a coastal town, a place that seemed forgotten by time. When William arrived at the house, it was as if all the sounds around him had disappeared. The whole world seemed to shrink down to that moment, to that place. He stood before the door, his heart racing uncontrollably in his chest. What if she didn't want to see him? What if time had changed everything? But he knew he had to try. He needed to see Sophie, even if it was just for one last time. With a trembling hand, he knocked on the door. There was a silence that seemed to last an eternity. William was about to give up, to turn back, when the door slowly opened. And there she was, Sophie, the woman he had never been able to forget. But she was not the same Sophie he remembered. Time had left its marks, lines of worry and suffering etched on her face, and her once vibrant eyes now looked tired, as if they carried the weight of many years of struggle. They stood there motionless, staring at each other as if trying to recognize one another through the veil of the past. Finally, it was Sophie who broke the silence, her voice soft yet filled with repressed emotions. "William, I never thought I would see you again." William didn't know whether to smile or cry. His words came out with difficulty, each one laden with feelings he didn't know how to express. "Sophie, I don't know what to say. I thought you had died." Sophie looked down as if guilt and regret were present in every shared memory. "I know it seems that way, but I had to leave. There were things I couldn't tell you, things that made me run away. I didn't know what else to do." William stepped forward, pain and anger finally overflowing. "But why, Sophie? Why didn't you look for me? Why didn't you tell me you were alive? That we had a daughter?" Sophie looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to protect you, William. I knew my life was complicated, and I didn't want to drag you into my chaos. I thought you deserved something better, that you should move on and live your life without the burden I carried." Her words pierced William's heart. "But I never moved on, Sophie. I could never do that. And now I've realized I've lost so much time, that I could have been by your side helping you, being with our daughter." Sophie stepped forward, reaching out to touch William's face, a hesitant gesture as if she were also testing the waters of the past that had come back to haunt them. "I made many mistakes, William, but I never stopped loving you. I thought letting you go would be best for you." William held her hand against his face, feeling the warmth and familiarity of that touch that he had missed so much. "And now, Sophie, what do we do with all of this? How do we deal with what we lost?" Sophie looked deeply into his eyes, love and pain clearly intertwined in her expression. "I don't know, William, but maybe we can start over. Maybe we can find a way to heal these wounds together." They stood there holding hands, the weight of the past between them, but also a new hope, a chance to rebuild what had been broken. William knew it wouldn't be easy, that the road ahead would be filled with challenges and uncertainties, but for the first time in many years he felt he was not alone anymore. Sophie was there, alive, and despite everything they had been through, there was the possibility of a new beginning. As they embraced, tears finally flowing freely, William realized that meeting Sophie again was not just a reunion with his old love. It was a reconnection with a part of himself that he thought he had lost forever. And now, together, they could redefine the future, a future that, despite everything, still belonged to them. The nights after reuniting with Sophie were the longest William had ever experienced. He sat in his dark room, his mind spinning with thoughts he couldn't control. Sophie was alive and Lily was his daughter. Two powerful truths that he never imagined facing and that now required him to make a choice. The weight of betrayal was still there, heavy on his chest like a stone. For years he had carried the bitterness of believing he had lost the love of his life, that she had died without him being able to say goodbye. He had built a wall around his heart, made of hurt and regret. And now, suddenly that wall was crumbling, piece by piece, revealing the raw pain and unresolved feelings that had been buried inside. He knew he needed to forgive. But how do you forgive an absence that defined your entire existence? How do you accept that the years of loneliness, of struggling against the shadow of a loss he thought was final, could have been different if he had only known the truth? Yet there was also Lily, the young woman with her shy smile and eyes that reflected so much of Sophie, was a living testament to everything he had lost and everything he could still have. She was a part of him, even if he had only discovered that now. He wondered if he could be the father she needed, the father he never knew he could be. One morning, after a sleepless night, William made a decision. He could not continue living in the past, ruminating over what he could not change. If he had any hope of healing his wounds, he would need to face those feelings head-on. He needed to find Sophie and Lily and confront, once and for all, the demons that haunted him. He arranged to meet Sophie and Lily at a discreet cafe in the city. The place was cozy, with soft lighting and the aroma of fresh coffee lingering in the air. But the atmosphere between them was charged with tension. Sophie was nervous, her fingers anxiously fiddling with the cup in front of her, while Lily looked at William, trying to decipher what he was thinking. William looked at both of them, his expression serious, but there was a softness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for what he needed to say. "I spent many years carrying a pain I thought would never heal," he began, his voice low but firm. "I felt betrayed, abandoned, and lived in the shadow of a loss I believed was final. And now I've discovered that what I thought was the truth was only part of it." Sophie looked down, guilt evident on her face. But before she could say anything, William continued, "I know you did what you thought was best, Sophie, and I know you believed you were protecting me. But I can't deny that what you did hurt me deeply." Lily looked at her mother, seeing the pain in her eyes, and then turned her gaze back to William. "I understand that this is difficult, William. I don't expect you to accept everything all at once, but I just wanted you to know that, despite everything, I'm happy to finally meet you. And I hope that somehow we can be a family." These words were like balm to William's wounded heart. He looked at Lily, seeing in her the hope for a future he never imagined was possible. Then he looked at Sophie, the woman he still loved despite everything. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time he was ready to face it. "Sophie," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "I know we need time to heal, but I want to try. I want to try to be the man you and Lily need. And to do that, I need to learn to forgive. To forgive you, to forgive what happened, and above all, to forgive myself for everything I let slip away." Sophie lifted her gaze, tears shining in her eyes. "William, I never wanted to hurt you, I just wanted to protect you. But I see now that I made many mistakes. If you can forgive me, I promise I will do everything I can to make amends for the past." Lily, sitting between the two, felt a wave of hope growing inside her. She reached out her hands, one to William and the other to Sophie, and they joined hands, forming a bond that, though fragile, was genuine. William felt the warmth of his daughter's hand, felt the weight of Sophie's hand, and something inside him began to release. The bitterness he had carried for so many years was starting to dissolve, replaced by a feeling of renewal, of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for healing, for reconciliation. And as they sat together, holding hands, William realized that no matter how difficult it might be, he was ready to try. To finally leave the past behind and embrace the future that, despite everything, still lay ahead of them. William believed he had unearthed all the buried secrets of the past, but a new discovery was about to shake his convictions even further. In the days following his reconciliation with Sophie and Lily, he couldn't shake a persistent feeling that there was more to uncover, something still hidden in the shadows of the past. This intuition led him to delve deeper into his investigations. The necklace, which had been the thread connecting all of this, now seemed more than just a symbol of lost and rediscovered love. There was something about it that he couldn't ignore, something that whispered that the necklace held a greater secret, a secret he still didn't fully understand. William began to review everything he knew, sifting through old documents and speaking with people who had known Sophie before everything fell apart. It was during this process that he made a surprising discovery. Sophie hadn't distanced herself from him solely because of her own fear and insecurity, but because her life had been manipulated by external forces. Powerful individuals had intervened, orchestrating events to ensure that William and Sophie would never be together. Everything began to fall into place when William found an old friend of Sophie's family, someone who had disappeared from the scene shortly after Lily's birth. This man, now elderly and bitter, revealed to William something he never imagined. Sophie's family, in collusion with some influential figures, had devised a scheme to separate the two. They feared that Sophie's union with William, someone outside their elite circle, would tarnish their reputation. The necklace, the simple yet beautiful piece with the turquoise stone, was not just a token of love. It was a kind of marker, a piece that connected Sophie to a network of blackmail and secrets. By giving the necklace to Sophie, William had unknowingly introduced a symbol that her family would use to track her movements, monitoring every step she took, ensuring she couldn't escape their control. The revelations shocked William to his core. He now saw that Sophie's life had been a game in the hands of people who viewed her as a pawn on their board, using the necklace as an emblem of control. But more than that, he realized that their separation had not been a coincidence. It had been orchestrated. Filled with anger and determination, William decided to confront those behind the conspiracy. He knew that unmasking them wouldn't be easy, but he also knew he couldn't let the responsible parties go unpunished. More than that, he wanted Sophie to understand that it wasn't her fault, that the burden she had carried for so long wasn't hers to bear. He returned home to find Sophie and Lily in the living room, both worried by William's expression. When he shared everything he had discovered, Sophie fell silent, tears streaming down her face. She was finally beginning to understand why her life had been so controlled, so filled with fear and uncertainty. Everything made sense now. "I am so sorry," Sophie said, her voice breaking. "I thought I was protecting you, but in reality I was the prisoner." William held her hands firmly. "It's not your fault, Sophie. You were manipulated. We both were. But now we know the truth, and we're going to fight against this together." Determined, William gathered all the evidence he could find, confronting those who had orchestrated the conspiracy. He used his power and influence to expose the dark secrets of Sophie's family and their collaborators. The necklace, which once symbolized love, became the key to unmasking the truth and bringing down the house of cards built on lies and control. The conspiracy was finally revealed to the world, and those who tried to control Sophie and William's destiny were exposed and punished. But for William, the most important thing was that he and Sophie had broken the chains that bound them. The past no longer controlled them. They were finally free. As they sat together, reflecting on everything they had been through, William looked at Sophie and Lily and realized that despite everything, they had something no one could take away from them: each other and the truth they had finally unearthed. The truth had been revealed and the shadows of the past had finally dissipated. William felt as if a massive weight had been lifted from his shoulders, but the relief came with a new burden: the responsibility to protect his family and ensure that what had happened would never happen again. He couldn't change what had already been done, but he could make sure the responsible parties paid for their actions and that a new legacy was built, free from the manipulations and betrayals that had marked his past. The first thing William did was gather all the resources and contacts he had accumulated over the years. As a successful businessman, he had the power to move mountains, and now he would use that power not to build more wealth, but to seek justice. He hired the best lawyers, investigators, and media consultants to ensure that the truth about the conspiracy was publicly exposed. It wasn't enough for the guilty to face justice. The world needed to know what they had done. Newspapers, television shows, and news websites were flooded with stories about the conspiracy that had destroyed lives. Headlines screamed about the manipulations and betrayals, with the names of the guilty splashed across every page. Sophie's family, which had hidden their dirty secrets for so long, was now in the spotlight, and the society that had once admired them began to turn its back. William made sure there was no escape, that everyone involved would face the consequences of their actions. But for William, this was just the beginning. He knew that his true mission was to build something new, something that wasn't just a reaction to the past, but a beacon of hope for the future. He wanted to give Lily and Sophie the life they deserved, a life free of fear and full of possibilities. He began investing in projects that reflected the values he now championed. He built community centers and founded organizations dedicated to helping those who, like Sophie, had been manipulated and controlled by powerful people. He funded educational programs for young people, ensuring they had the opportunities that he and Sophie had missed. Every decision he made, every step he took, was guided by the idea of building a new legacy, not just for himself but for his family and for all those who could benefit from his fight for the truth. Sophie, in turn, began to heal. She and William worked together side by side, not only to face the challenges that arose but to create a new home, a place where trust and love could flourish without the shadows of the past. Lily, who had grown up without knowing her true origins, finally found a place to belong, surrounded by parents who loved her and were determined to ensure that the world she lived in was safe and just. One night, as the family gathered in their new home, built not of bricks and cement but of trust and hope, William found himself looking to the future with a clarity he had never felt before. He watched Sophie and Lily laughing together in the living room and felt a peace he had long forgotten. William's new legacy was not just about justice or revenge, it was about redemption, the ability to transform pain into something positive, to build something lasting from the ashes of what had been lost. And as he observed his family, he knew he had finally found his place in the world. The past had tried to destroy them, but together, they had built something stronger, something that could not be broken. At the heart of it all was the truth that William, Sophie, and Lily had fought so hard to uncover, which now united them, not as victims of fate, but as architects of a bright and promising future. The gentle sound of waves crashing against the shore filled the air with a sense of calm that William hadn't felt in a long time. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, while a cool breeze gently swayed the trees around them. It was the end of a long day, but also the beginning of something completely new, a new life, a new chance. William, Sophie, and Lily were together in their new home, which was not just a physical place but a symbol of all they had achieved. It was a home built on truth, where every brick, every wall, represented a step they had taken to free themselves from the shadows of the past. William looked at Sophie, who was standing on the porch, gazing at the ocean with a serene smile on her face. She looked different now, lighter, as if the weight she had carried for so many years had finally been left behind. He approached her, wrapping his arms around her, feeling the warmth of her body against his. Sophie turned to him, and for a moment they simply looked at each other, sharing a silent connection that spoke more than any words could. "I never thought we would get here," Sophie said softly, almost reverently. "Neither did I," William replied, holding her a little tighter. "But I'm glad we made it, that we are here together." Lily, who was inside the house, watched them from the window. She knew this moment was special, representing the closing of a chapter that had started long before she was even born. But she also understood it was the beginning of something new, something they had built together. She stepped out onto the porch and joined them, feeling the warmth and comfort that came from being with her family. William reached out his hand, and Lily took it, forming a perfect circle of love and acceptance. There were no more secrets between them, no more lies. All that mattered now was the present and the future they were creating from that moment on. "Are we ready for this?" Lily asked, a slight smile playing on her lips. William looked at her, pride and hope shining in his eyes. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "We're ready to start anew. Together." The three of them stood there, holding hands, watching the sun disappear on the horizon. The world around them felt full of possibilities, with new opportunities arising every moment. There was much to be done, much to discover, but they knew that together, they could face anything. The new life they were beginning wouldn't be perfect. They knew that. There would be challenges, tough moments, but there was a strength that now united them, a strength born from the love and truth they had discovered and chosen to embrace. As time passed, William found himself rebuilding his life in a way he had never imagined. He left behind the bitter man that the past had shaped and began to live with new energy and hope. Sophie, by his side, flourished in her new role, not only as Lily's mother but also as a partner in everything. They were a team, a family, and each day was a new opportunity to create something beautiful together. Lily, in turn, finally felt she belonged somewhere. She was no longer the young girl selling flowers, trying to find her place in the world. She had found her place, her purpose, alongside the parents she now knew and loved. They had given her something she never knew she needed, a home, a true family. And so, as the sun set that day, a new journey began for William, Sophie, and Lily. There were no more shadows from the past to haunt them, no more secrets to destroy what they had built. There was only the promise of a future full of possibilities, a future where love and truth guided their steps, where each day would be a new beginning, filled with hope and redemption. As they prepared to enter their home, William looked at the darkening sky and felt, for the first time in a long time, that everything was exactly where it should be. He had his family by his side, and together they had built a future that, though uncertain, was full of promise and light. The new beginning he never thought he would have was finally before him, and he was ready to embrace it with all his heart. What would you do in William's place? Would you have the courage to uncover the whole story? Or would you have ignored the necklace around the young woman's neck and considered it just a coincidence? Comment below what you would do. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any stories like this.